All right, we are back on Evolve's Carbon GT, outfitted with the ABEC 11 107mm SuperFly wheels, designed specifically for electric skateboards. And if you'll remember in the previous video that we were doing for the range test on these boards, I said this. I'll probably retest this again with the AT, with the all-terrain tires for comparison, and also with the probably with the faster, with the 32 tooth rear sprocket. And we might get surprised. I don't know. Electric motors are a funny thing. Sometimes they have sweet spots, and so we might get surprised. Well, spoiler alert. Electric motors are funny things. Sometimes they have sweet spots. All right, let's get right down to it. I'm going to do a separate video reviewing the ABEC 107mm SuperFly wheels. So we'll do that as a separate one. So we'll not focus too much on what I think of the wheels. But again, spoiler alert there. It's a great wheel. It is a great wheel for electric skateboard riding. But we'll cover that in the next video. But let's go over just a little bit of electric skateboarding 101. So the stress that's on the motor, and therefore the efficiency of the board and the top speed of the board, those are all going to be determined by a lot of different factors. And you have, in an electric skateboard, you have a compound gear ratio where you wind up having not only the ratio between the drive gear on the motor and the sprocket on the wheel being proportionate, but you also have the stress that's imparted to the board in the diameter of the wheel. As the diameter of the wheel increases, then also that amount of torque needed to move the board forward also increases. And so that's why they try and compensate for that when you see things like the AT tires, where you actually have a sprocket that's the size of the entire size of the hub, pretty much. All right? So that is going to be something that we'll also take a look at in a future video. We're going to do a range test with the AT tires. But you're all here because you want to see the results for the 32 tooth versus the 38 tooth using the 107mm wheels. Wow. All I can say is that there's a good reason that we actually do testing on things like this. I didn't initially think that it was going to be important to do an 11-mile test, probably just because I hated the entire idea of repeating that 30-mile test. And I figured, well, I'll get enough data to send everybody when I do the 15-mile-an-hour test. Well, let's pull up the 15-mile-an-hour numbers, shall we? So what I'm going to do to make this easier is I'm going to go ahead, and this chart that I'm pulling up here has also the numbers from the previous 38 tooth gear alongside. And so, wow, I mean, I don't know what to say other than what the numbers show us. So we're looking at roughly 1.5–2% apparent improvement in the first 6 miles or so, but then it starts to creep up into that weird kind of 2%. Now that's totally, I did not expect the smaller gear to exhibit those kinds of efficiency numbers. I felt that that they were going to place more of a strain on it, but then I thought, okay, well, maybe we've hit that sweet spot at 15 miles an hour. We're actually showing an increase in our efficiency. And the increase actually increased slightly to nearly 2% efficiency increase once you started to see that 20 mile, 22 mile, 23 mile range. In the initial tests of the 38 tooth at that using that same thing, we were only able to go 22 miles. So that got my attention. That got my attention. It shouldn't have, as far as I was concerned, have gone any further. So then we charge up the board. Let's go ahead and try it at 10 miles or 11 miles an hour. And wow, right away, right out of the gate, I started seeing improvement. I didn't think I should see any improvement at 11 miles an hour. My thought is that it should have gotten worse. And so again, back to that, what I'd said in the previous video. Sometimes motors have sweet spots, that point where they have just enough load on them so that they're not free running, because electric motors don't often run efficiently when they're free running either. But by the same token, they don't like to have an excessive amount of load, which is why when you go up a hill, you have some consumption issues. So yeah. What you can see here now as we pull up the the other chart for 11 miles an hour, and now let's go ahead and lay that against the 11-mile chart for we'll lay that against the 11-mile chart for the 38 tooth, and now again you see that immediately you start seeing you start seeing a 1%, 0.5%, 1% difference just at 4 miles, 5, 10 miles. Then you start to get in at 12 miles, and it starts to increase and increase and increase and increase. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. We're not talking about an inconsequential increase in overall efficiency. I got another 3 miles off of it, nearly 4 miles off of it. So it was really surprising. So I hope you found all of this interesting. I certainly did. I did not expect that the smaller 32 tooth sprocket was going to be more efficient, especially at slower speeds and when the board was further depleted. Don't know what else to say about that. It is what it is. Those are the numbers. And so if you're interested in extending your range by a bit, then definitely go with the 32 tooth sprocket. If all you're doing is hill climbing or that kind of a thing, maybe that would give some argument for going to that 38 tooth sprocket. But at this point, well, who knew? So now you know you've got the hard numbers to go by. Very impressed with the Evolve Carbon GT. It's a fantastic board out of the box. I'm not going to do a review on it here. This is just about the gear ratios and the efficiencies of these particular wheels and some gear ratios. If you're using these wheels on another board with different motors, you may have to try and do your own range tests and change components and see what your results are. But I'm definitely going to do a 400 or 500 mile review on the Evolve Carbon GT because I think it deserves it. And then we're also going to do a quick review on these wheels. They deserve it too. So again, thanks for watching. Hope you like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of these as they come out. And we'll see you soon.